So thank you ladies so much today for joining us on this beautiful morning, early Tuesday. Firstly, I'd just like you guys to just introduce yourself and what you do.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Marcia Lewinson. I'm the CEO of a Birmingham-based charity called WAITS, which is short for Women Acting in Today's Society, and we provide support for women fleeing domestic abuse.
Hi, my name's Joy Doal and I'm the CEO of Anawim, and we work with women across Birmingham. We support with all sorts of issues, but we particularly support women who are involved in the criminal justice system and either side of it as well.
Hello, I'm Dido Nina. I'm a professional nurse, a survivor of DV, and I've received service from WAITS, and therefore I am here.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much for coming up here and talking about that, something that's so important, and I think as women, as a community, we don't talk about enough, but it happens so much. So what do you guys believe are the most significant barriers to prevent women from seeking help or escaping their abusive situations, and how could they overcome this?
I think there's lots of barriers that prevent women from fleeing, but mainly it's around finances, also confidence. If they don't understand what's happened to them in terms of the domestic abuse, because it takes various forms. If it was physical, you'd automatically leave, but if you're going through mental or emotional and financial abuse, it's a lot more difficult. And for Black and global majority women, you also have barriers around community and fear. In the African Caribbean, there's community, we don't have a good relationship with the police, so the fear of informing on your family member is a huge barrier.
Absolutely. I think coercive control is a huge factor. So many partners use coercive control to keep the women in the situations that they're in, and that could include financial control as well. The lack of housing is a huge issue, which we're really noticing in Birmingham at the moment. There isn't that option to flee because there isn't actually anywhere to go, which is really difficult. You're likely to go into temporary accommodation, which if you've got children is awful. So there's so many barriers, but a lot of it is emotional and that element of control. And I think so many women know as well that the most dangerous time for them is as they leave and after they've left. So that fear as well of retribution is huge.
I think education also play a factor, because if the women aren't educated that what they are experiencing is actually abuse, then they wouldn't know who to seek help from or how to go about it. So I think it's better, for example, like other panel members have said, if it's physical abuse, they know you beating me and it's not right. But what if it's emotional, it's psychological, it's coercive behavior, it's harassment? They wouldn't know that this is actually illegal, or I should go and speak to this person. So I think in terms of education or educational status, it helps the women identify that, no, this is not acceptable and I need to seek help. And I think also sometimes they might find it challenging to seek help because of their immigration status. So if, for example, they are dependent, like they know that if I go, I might be deported, I might lose my status and all that. So then the abuser can also use that against them, and they will be caught up in that situation instead of leaving for their own good.
Amazing. Thank you guys for sharing that. And I think everything that you guys touch on is so important. The cultural differences, the fear of police, the fear of immigration. There's a lot of factors that add to it. And, there's so many people that I know that have experienced it and have not realised they've experienced it until they've left or until someone is there to support them. So how important do you think having a community or an organisation there to support is? How important do you think it is?
I think it's very important, because that gives the women or the survivors the opportunity to live again, the chance to regain their self, the chance to build their confidence back and find their self-esteem back, because that helps them. For example, I'm a survivor, and it was because somebody listened to me. It's because I found an organization who was willing to meet my needs. It was because WAITS accepted me. They made me feel listened to. They did not judge me. It was no fault of mine that I was abused. So that helped me to regain my strength back. That helped me to find my confidence back. And then then that helped me to decide my future, basically to decide that, all right, this was my life before and I want it to be this now, and I'm moving forward. I'll be able to make my decisions in order that I'll be able to have my own life to myself and be cautious of, or even be able to identify traces from other people who I think, no, this is going to be like before and I don't want it again. So I think it's good if we have communities, charities, organizations that are known, that people know that if I go there, I will be heard and then my needs will be met.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that perpetrators use against women is isolation. So we all know that people who are controlling you will isolate you from your friends and family. So as friends and as family members, we need to be looking out for our sisters out there. You know, if they're starting to be isolated, if they're starting to not go out like they used to, you know, pick up the phone to them, make sure that they know that you care and that you are there for them, because that's one of the major factors, is that isolation that perpetrators use against the woman to keep her down and think that she's alone and that she can't manage without him.
And this is why it's really important for organisations like Waits and Anawim to exist, because we do believe what the woman says. Often perpetrators say nobody will believe you, and so coming to a space where you are believed straight away is really important. And then having what we do within our organisations, which is building back confidence and self-esteem, and also the ability to make choices. When you're in that situation, the ability to make choices is taken away because you're ending up in that controlling, whereas our organisations help you to think about your choices and make those choices that will help you move on.
It's really important that we're open access as well. So we have a drop-in that any woman can walk in anytime during the week, you know, so not having to sort of jump through hoops to have loads of appointments and get turned away if you don't turn up on the third time. That's really important. And so many services now are setting up those barriers and closing the door to appointments when someone doesn't turn up. And there's good reason why someone doesn't turn up quite often, if their mental health is struggling or whatever. So, you know, you need that open access, that open door and that ability. And knowing where you are as well, having a physical centre really helps as well, because women know you're there.
Fabulous. So this is just an added question, and one of you guys mentioned about touching on financial abuse and emotional abuse, and I think for a lot of us, we don't know the different types of abuses. I know I only learnt it through teaching other young people about it, so it was by force that I learned actually there are different types of abuse and it does look very different, and actually maybe I might have experienced some form of abuse in my previous relationships. Would you be able to share the 4 different types of abuse and what they look like? Don't know if each of you want to take one and then...
That's fine. So there is honor-based abuse. So if you're doing something that is like culturally appropriate, and you know that if you leave, then you're going to be the black sheep of the family. So you know this is not right, but because of where you're coming from, it's being done to you. You've been told to do something that you know, no, I don't want to do this, but you can't say no, because if you do, then you've disrespected your family or you've brought shame to the family. So that's honor. You're honoring them at the expense of your happiness, at the expense of what you actually want to do. So that is abuse, because you're being asked to do things against your will, against your wish, or what you are living for.
So honor abuse, what could someone do in that situation if they were experiencing it?
I think it all comes back to what we've already said. First of all, are they actually recognizing that this is abuse? And then for them to recognize that, then they need the education bit, and they need more information about, you know, it needs to be open, it needs to be clear that if you are going through this is what honor-based abuse looks like. So you can speak to this person, you can speak to that person. So once the knowledge is out there and the information is clear, so people know the signs and what to look out for, they know that, for example, no disrespect to anybody's culture, but I've been asked to marry this one. I know I don't love him, I know I can't deal with it, I can't stand his attitude. But if I don't do it, my family will disown me. So I have to honor my family's way. So if the women know that, no, if you say no, it's a no and it's your decision to make. And then, for example, if I go to Anawim, I will be helped and my voice will be heard, then they'll be able to know that, okay, I've recognized this is an abuse and I'm going to say no. And I know that I will not be alone. I know that I can go to this charity and I'll be heard. I know that I can go to this organization, I'll be heard. And then that would help me to move on and have a plan for myself.
I think with like financial abuse particularly, it's so difficult these days, isn't it? Because we think, oh, you know, we've got equality now, you know, but wages are still lower for women than they are for men. We take on jobs that are part-time because of caring responsibilities, etc. So we still don't have the financial freedom that the male perpetrators might have. And they'll use that against you to keep you in a certain position. So there's a lot of evidence around domestic violence homicides where it's men that have particular stereotypical views about roles within the home. So they get perpetrated, and we've only got to see what's happening in America at the moment for the way that is going. You know, we take one step forward as women, don't we, in freedoms, and then we seem to have to take steps back. You know, feels like we're going back into the 1930s in America at the moment because it's just awful. But those sort of things are sort of perpetrated to hold us back and to stop us being as independent as we could be. Because if we're independent, then we've got the choice to do what we want and leave.
There's also coercive control, which has recently been recognised in the Domestic Abuse Bill in 2021. Now, coercive control for me is where the abuse can start. It starts off very subtly with your partner possibly saying, oh, I don't like your friend, your best friend that you've had since school. She doesn't like me. And so I don't think we should go and see her. And eventually that relationship drops off. And then they'll say, oh, I don't think you should go and see your mother this week. And again, that continues till it drops off. And then you find yourself in a situation where you're wholly dependent on that person. And that's when they can start manipulating you, gaslighting you. So coercive control is another aspect of domestic abuse. And then there's sexual abuse as well within that, where your partner is coercing you if you say no, and they continue to persuade you to continue as well. And then finally, we have, with the new technology, the abuse that happens online. We've had clients where they've been put in a position where they've taken photographs, and that's been used and posted online or sent back home to their family members.
So it's so important, the bill that's going through, and there's a select committee today about the online safety bill, which is really important. So, you know, get behind that, because it can happen to any of us, you know, and then with the deep fakes as well now, it's really, really worrying. So we need women to be getting into things like AI to actually dominate that area, because at the moment it's very male dominated, the AI industry. So let's get in there as women and make it a better place and a safer place.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much. And you know, there's, like you mentioned, anyone can go through it. And I think sometimes we think that would never happen to me. I would never be silly enough to be in an abusive relationship. But there's such a thin line between the abuse and what we think is okay. And I know I'd probably say my generation and probably the generation before, that kind of control thing, we kind of like a little bit. But we don't sometimes understand when it's gone too far until we're out of that situation. And it can be very difficult for people. So there's people who go through that situation. They have the confidence and empowerment to kind of speak up. Empowerment is so important as part of this. And what do you think needs to be done more to empower women or to support them after they have gone through an abusive situation?
So I think the first thing is whoever that the woman discloses first to has the ability to make or break the woman. So if I tell you something, I might not necessarily be thinking it's abuse, but if you know more than I do, then I need you to tell me that hang on a minute, this might be abuse, because it takes someone to recognize what they are going through to give it a name. So if you don't recognize what you're going through is abuse, you cannot give it the name as abuse. So you need to first of all recognize that it's abuse, and then you need to accept it. Not because you're accepting to be abused, but you need to accept the current situation, which will now enable you to seek the support that you need. So I think it's important that if people come to us with their problem, we listen to them, not judgmentally. It's very important, because if you judge me, I'm not coming to you again. And then I'll leave thinking that maybe it's my fault, maybe I led the person to doing that to me and all that. So it's about listening to people, signposting them when necessary, building that rapport with them, maintaining confidentiality, and just giving them that safe space to be themselves and be vulnerable with you and tell you what they've experienced and how they would like to be helped. So it's about planning that care with them, not for them. So listen to their voice, let them be heard, and how you can support them best.
Thank you.
I mean, there's lots of practical things as well. I mean, we need much more access to safe housing. We need access to well-paid jobs. So it's all things that, as business people as well who are here today, you can recognise. We've got the new sexual harassment laws coming into workplaces now as well, which will help some of the women who are working in various industries. So there are things coming in that will really help. So practical things, so being able to get onto the job ladder, being able to break the glass ceilings, being able to have that independence and get on in life that we need to, so that we don't actually need to rely on somebody being the provider. We need to be able to do it for ourselves as sisters.
As said, Joy. As said earlier, education. I think teaching our young people from an early age what a good relationship looks like. I think from people that have come from different cultures, how relationships are presented can be a barrier, because I can speak from the Caribbean community. We are raised that men are the head of the household, and in a lot of communities that's the same. But when men were the only breadwinner, then that would stand. But now, because males and females go out and contribute to the household, there needs to be recognition of the role that women play in the house and the importance that we play in terms of caring and providing for our young people. And I think as well, with organisations like ours that set out to build confidence, at Waits we run employability programmes as well as coffee mornings. So we're helping the women right at that point of crisis to think about their future and plan for their future, and giving them the skills to move forward.
Just remember that the other abuse that we forgot all about was spiritual abuse, which is very prevalent in lots of various faiths and can be manipulated to hold you to a particular belief, like that you have got to stay at home and do all those jobs. So yeah, spiritual abuse is very real as well and happens a lot in different, all sorts of faiths.
I just want to add, I think challenging behavior when it comes to domestic abuse is everyone's responsibility, because if you have the knowledge and the victim doesn't have, you can share with them and you not take the power from them, but you can enlighten them for them to know that actually, no, this is not right. And I think this is how you're feeling. You validate their feeling, listen to them. It all comes to listen and having that conversation. So it's everybody watching out for each other in the community. So being our brother's keeper and all that.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And kind of going back to the listening and the championing, how can society, including the workplace, better support women who have experienced abuse in terms of providing safety, understanding, resources, and also helping them to build their lives?
At Waits, I've written some training programs to support employers to be able to recognise the signs. If an employee starts coming into work late, their attitude and their performance starts failing. The training is to equip supervisors and managers to confidently ask the questions. A lot of the times we've experienced it ourselves, or we have family members who've experienced it. It can be quite difficult to actually broach the question and to find out what is going on for that individual. And once they're able to do that, it's thinking about the safety package that the employer might need to put into place, allowing time, just like how we allow time to go to the doctors, allow time to go to the for counselling, and very importantly to have an actual policy that helps people if they come forward. So that's one of the things that we do at Waits in terms of helping employers and supporting their colleagues.
And I think in that as well, we need to be thinking about with our domestic violence policies at work that actually, what about the perpetrator? If you hear that one of your employees is a perpetrator of domestic abuse, whichever gender they are, what do you do as an employer? Because I think in the past it's always been, well, it's none of our business really, is it? It's not affecting their job. Well, maybe it is, because if there's underlying attitudes of misogyny or, if that's how you treat somebody at home, then it's going to have an impact on your job. So ethically, as an employer, you've got a place to play in, whether you're allowed to actually discipline the person, but you should be at least bringing it up. And if the person then is, actually gets a criminal record for it, then obviously that has implications for their job, and it should do. There's got to be accountability. And I think with the new sexual harassment guidance that's coming in, it's going to bring that in as well. There'll be an onus on the employer to prevent sexual harassment from happening, even from a third party. So, that's going to be a major change for employers, and that needs to happen, and it's going to bring some accountability.
I think it's about recognizing the signs to begin with. So if you're working with someone and their attitude has changed, their working has changed, you need to recognize that, and also you need to make your employees aware of the policies regarding that, who they can speak to and how they could go about it, because sometimes they might not feel comfortable sharing with you as the manager, but then if they know that if I go to like Freedom to Speak Up Champion, or I go to some counselor at the workplace, it's a confidential space and safe space for me to be able to voice out my worries and be heard. And I think it's like having policies around us. So because if I am going to say something that is about my mental health, I'll feel like, well, then they'll think I'm not mentally able to do my job, or I might lose my job and all that. So it's about providing those policies that will safeguard people if they choose, or if they have the boldness to say that, right, this is what I'm going through, I need support, or I need to go off sick because of this, that, without fear of losing their job and then becoming financially dependent on their abuser, or becoming homeless because they can't pay for their rent. They've lost their job due to no fault of theirs. So it's about putting all those things in place and giving them that space to be a safe space to be able to have a confidential discussions about what is going on with them.
So going back to you guys and what you do, Marcia and Joy, are you able to explain a little bit more about your businesses, the importance of it, and where people can find it? And then for yourself, would you be able to explain kind of where you went to get support after obviously you went through your experience?
Anawim was set up in 1986, particularly originally was reaching out to women who were exploited by prostitution and working as sex workers on the street. And then we've developed and we've grown and we've become much more integrated with various parts of the criminal justice system. So we have a police diversion. So if a woman is caught, say, shoplifting or a very low-level crime, she can come to us and get support in whatever area she's got, because she's usually poverty-driven or other issues, so we can address that. If there's mental health, we can divert her into mental health services. We also do alternatives to custody, because for women, if you commit a crime today, and please don't, but if you do, you'll probably be sent to a prison 60 miles away from where you live. So you think about that. If you've got children, that's an awful long way. You're going to lose contact with your children. They can't come and visit you. So the actual prison sentence, even if it's only short, can be disproportionate for a woman. So we offer alternatives to that. We're involved with the Intensive Supervision Court, which is a problem-solving court here in Birmingham, particularly for women. and that's getting great results. And we also support the women in 2 of the prisons, which are, I say local prisons, they're not local, they're 48 miles away from here, but Drake Hall and Foston Hall. And then we support the women when they come back through the gate. But we've also got a drop-in, which, as I say, any woman can walk in. And then we've got specialists around domestic abuse, sexual violence and mental health and accommodation. So, yeah, we deal with everything, really, that the women present with.
Thank you, Joy. Just like Anawim Waits was established in 1993, and as a charity that with the aim to empower women, to support women to have a voice. And I joined the charity way back then, and my role then was to go out and meet with women and help them to set up community-based groups. Within 5 years, we'd noticed that the women that were coming to help first set up the groups had experienced domestic abuse. And with some funding, we did some research to understand how black women in particular, minority women, were accessing support. And at that time, it was mainly refuge. So we set up our community-based domestic abuse service, which still runs now, where we meet women in the communities, anywhere where it's safe. In the early days, we used to meet them in their homes, and we provide support to access justice, legal support, which for women, legal aid is something that they can hardly get. And so we work with solicitors to provide pro bono support where we can. So we also have a similar project like Anawim, because women going through domestic abuse will start self-medicating and end up being arrested for drink driving and things like that. So we support them like Anawim to overcome their domestic abuse so that they can recycle back into the community. All of our work is underpinned by emotional support, because that's where we start, from delivering counselling, therapeutic workshops to help to develop new ways of thinking, and as I mentioned, employability. And finally, we also provide refuge as well. And where DD comes in, we have an expert panel of women who've gone through domestic abuse, who we support to continue that empowerment and having voice. And they work with us to get involved in consultation so that we can bring the issues and the barriers that are affecting women, but more importantly, the solutions to the service providers and the people in charge, like the government.
So when I first disclosed, I went to a different organization at where I was. So I had because of that, I had to move a whole miles away to Birmingham. No family, no nothing to start my life. So that's why if you hear me, I keep saying communication, because it had helped me. I felt listened to, and then I got my voice and my courage back. Because if I had come here and I was prepared to wait and they hadn't listened to me, they didn't believe what I said, I would have been miserable. But they heard my voice and they gave me refuge. They signposted me to the likes of Christ and other organizations that would meet my needs. And through the help of all the other organizations and all the people I've had, I am here today, graduated from university, have my degree, have my full-time job, and I'm able to actually share my voice, share my expertise to hopefully make the world a better place for people. So I am particularly grateful for whoever that listened to me and the first people that first heard my story. Because like I said earlier, it takes the recognition to know that no, this is not right, and to actually seek support. And my voice was heard, and I received the care and the support that I needed, which shaped me into a better woman that I am so proud of today. So that's it.
Amazing. Well, thank you, ladies, so much for sharing. I want to put it out to you guys now. If there's any questions, whether you own a business, you work in a company, whether you maybe know someone who's experienced or experiencing it. If you have any questions, I'd like to put it to you guys. If anyone has any questions, let me get down 1 second. I'm on my way. So when you do stand up, please introduce yourself and who you are and what you do. This is your chance to also shine as well. So can we give a round of applause?
Hello, thank you for sharing your experiences. What I was interested in knowing is what support are out there for the men who cause these abuse to women. You never hear of the support. And in my view, things will only change when it's highlighted to them that what they're doing are detrimental to their partners or wives, children's also well-being. You know, and I think it would be a good idea if they also could have support in educating them as how to treat women and children. And hopefully that would reduce the abuse and more people would recognize the abuse, because as you know, it is terrible to hear of some of the abuses that are taking places.
Do you like to answer?
I mean, we desperately need to do something in our schools. We need to bringing up our boys differently. Not just boys, obviously girls can abuse too, but we need to be educating people on what a healthy relationship looks like. We need to be understanding better the line between jealousy and possessiveness and then coercive control. You know, we don't do anything in our schools around these issues anymore. Those areas have just got cut, you know, which is really sad. And I think, you know, as a mother of a son as well, you need to be bringing up your boys to be educated, to understand the value of your relationships and what it looks like to be healthy. But yeah, there are perpetrator programs out there as well. They haven't always been evaluated as being massively effective. I think particularly when you force somebody to do a perpetrator program, it's a little bit problematic, but there has been some good results from some of them. But yeah, we've got to start young. We've got to change attitudes, and we can all do that. We can all challenge things. Like when you think about how the media portray when a woman is murdered by her partner, you very often hear things like jealous rage or jilted lover and things like that in the media. We need to be challenging those, and we need to be saying, no, he murdered her. Take responsibility, change the language. We know that prison sentences are more lenient when there's been a narrative around, oh, well, you know, he was jealous and she made him do this and she, you know, he flipped off into this jealous rage. No, he chose to do that. And we need to challenge the language that they use. There's some really good media packs that Level Up have done for journalists around reporting this. Just changing a word can change attitudes. So we need to challenge. So when you read something in the Daily Mail that says, you know, poor guy, you know, he did this, he flipped out because she nagged him or whatever. Well, you know, she didn't deserve an axe in her head for nagging him, you know, and we've got to change the narrative, and that will start to change attitudes. And we only have to see the misogynistic attitude that's coming out. We've got to challenge that, and we really need male allies at this time. We really need men to stand up and say, no, actually, that's really bad language. That's and challenging each other, challenging their friends, being able to do that. And put their head above the parapet and actually go, actually, no, what you said about that woman was really derogatory. I'm going to call you out on that. It's really important. So men have got a massive part to play in this.
Thank you, Joy. Yes, as Joy mentioned, there are perpetrators programs. So if you are convicted in court around domestic abuse and given a low-level sentencing, you will end up on a perpetrator program. But the effectiveness of them are not really known. It's not really been evaluated, and there's fear that sometimes that perpetrators can go and learn new tricks while they're on those programs. I wanted to kind of get us to think about other people in the community outside the criminal justice realm, because women don't always report to police. So there we have our religious leaders, our community leaders, who would tend to be male, but educating them so that they can tackle the abuse head on. You know, I've heard of women who've gone to their pastors to speak about what's going on at home, and the pastors said, well, get the man to come and speak to me. If you go home and say to the perpetrator, I've just reported you to the pastor, how likely is it that he will go and speak to that person? So we need these leaders to start coming out, and particularly start speaking out. And again, that's where the education comes in.
I think one other thing is holding people accountable as well. So when it comes to the criminal system, criminal justice system, I think it's about them strengthening their rules, because I think from my experience, most of the abusers are aware of what they're doing. They have the mental capacity to decide that this is what I'm going to do to this woman, and they know the rules about it. They will do just enough to get away with it, and you cannot penalize them or hold them accountable because they just know the system, so they will play with the system to get away with it all the time. So it's about strengthened criminal justice system that actually put them to hold them to account for their actions, to let other people know that if you choose to abuse someone, then you would accept the results and the consequences of your actions.
Hello, this is Dr. Zaki Rizwana Anwar. I've come from London just to attend this event. Basically, I'm a public health doctor, and also I'm a newscaster in Sky Channel 777 every Saturday. So I have noticed that all of you have said about the education, which I'm totally agree with that. But I have seen in many situations, in educated women, able women, they were like, they sacrificed their career because they have to look after the children. That is the perception of our society. So I know many of women, they are not doing the proper work. They are taking a low pay jobs, and that is how they are financially dependent on their male partner. And that is one thing. So if I always believe that prevention is better than cure. So you prevent the problem. So what I have told to my daughter, she is 24-year-old, and I said that if you are meeting a guy, you have to talk about lovey stuff, but you say about your future plan, you say about your profession. If he doesn't show any interest in your success, don't marry that guy. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you. We have a question at the back.
Hi, I'm Sareka Gill. I'm the founder of Yearn to Be. We're a CIC dealing with mental and physical, running mental and physical wellbeing programs. We are actually working with the police at the moment because my other half is not here today because she's teaching yoga. We are both victims of trauma, and we are both victims of abuse, physical, emotional, mental abuse over the years. And one thing that we haven't talked about is, I have 2 teenage boys, is we've talked about abuse with women, right? And I always used to say that I'm going to bring up 2 gentlemen, which I have. But we've also got to talk about abuse in men, right? So talking to the police at the moment, the most vulnerable time for a woman or a man in an abusive situation is when they decide to leave, because the perpetrator picks up the energy. So I am a teacher as well, and I do agree that we need to be talking in schools about it, but schools, the curriculum, we have to deal with so much as teachers. So really, I wouldn't say the crux, but the issues actually lie with the mothers, I feel, of people who are bringing up these perpetrators, be it a woman or a man, because the mother is really the first educator. So I do agree with everything that you're saying, but I do think we need to be talking about abuse in men as well as women, because that's underrepresented. Represented. Right, thank you.
And I think sometimes most survivors tend to become abusers themselves because they've lived it, they've experienced it, and nothing happened. So it then becomes a norm, like, well, my mom treated me like this and she's fine, so I can also treat my child like that. So I think it's about time society break something somewhere. We need to break that routine of accepting things that are not right, regardless of it being cultural. Because if I'm doing it and my mom did it to me and I felt, well, nothing happened to her, she's living, so it's fine, then I'll also give birth and I'll do it to my child. And then my child will think, well, my mom did it to me, so it's fine. Then it will be repeated behavior. So I think it's about time we, the society who is privileged to have the knowledge and recognize signs of abuse and recognize activities that lead to abuse, we have to now think about breaking that attitude and that behavior so that we can bring up a healthy relationship. We can bring people to be healthy and be in healthy relationships and think about their actions towards people and how it makes them feel, instead of being selfish and doing things that, well, that's how I was brought up, so that's what I know best. No, it's about we breaking that at some point so that future generation will know that if somebody shouts at you, it's not right, and you cannot just shout at somebody because you are responsible for your actions. And therefore, for all of us to live in a healthy world, this is how we need to speak to each other. You know, we are not perfect. We're going to offend each other at some point, but it's about recognizing, taking accountability for your actions, apologizing where necessary, and seeking support if you need it. So, because we need to break that routine of certain behaviors. If not, we can do all the education in the world, we can do all the conferences, but we need to have a break at some point and say, no, we don't need to tolerate this behavior anymore, so that we'll be able to relearn the good behaviors and the good attitude, so hopefully help prevent domestic abuse.
I agree with what you're saying about bringing up your children, but the men have got a part to play in there as well. The fathers need to be good role models. They need to be challenging their sons. They need to be calling out behaviour. You know, so if they notice that their son is sharing a topless picture of a girl at school, call it out. You know, call out the things that, you know, if they're talking derogatory about a girl, you know, call that out. It needs to be done. And we talk about, we get classed as single mothers quite often as women. What about the absent fathers? We need to be talking about absent fathers a bit more. Where's the responsibility there? You know, it's all very well saying, oh, you know, blaming the woman for being on her own, bringing up the children. Well, where's the dad? You know, was he just a sperm donor? Because, you know.
Amazing. So thank you guys so much for your questions. If you ladies would just like to share where people can find and connect with you.
Well, we've got a stall over there, so come and see us on the Anawim stall, somewhere around there.
Yes, we've also got a store just round the corner, so please do visit our stall earlier today. We're on all the socials. Website is www.waitesaction.org, and the same for Facebook, LinkedIn and Instagram. I just want to leave a very challenging thought. 2.4 million people in England alone experience domestic abuse, and that's people as far, you know, Boris Johnson was involved in domestic abuse. It affects everybody, and we need to be speaking out about it when we see and hear it.
And we can't just rely on the police to sort it out. I mean, West Midlands Police get a call every 30 seconds. That's domestic. I mean, let that sink in. Every 30 seconds, they get a call that's domestic abuse related. So they cannot possibly follow them all up. So we as a society need to get real, and we can't just rely on the police to sort this out.
Where can people find you to connect with you? LinkedIn?
They can't find you.
They can't find me. They can't find me.
She's hidden.
Yeah, so if you need me to speak at events or something, you can always go through Waits for now, and they'll get me to you.
Amazing. Wow. Can we give the ladies a round of applause, please? Fabulous.